Coming up on Theater Talk.
It is interesting, Michael, that you started with plays. This is a very good, this says something about the season that you actually, in spite of the Juggernaut show that we...
Hamilton this.
Right. It's nice that we've talked this long about plays.
What's Hamilton?
Theater Talk is made possible in part by the CUNY TV Foundation. From New York City, this is Theater Talk. I'm Susan Haskins.
And I'm Michael Riedel of the New York Post. And Susan, we've come to the end of yet another Broadway season.
Another Broadway season.
So to make sense of all the musicals and plays that we've seen, to sort the good from the bad, we have invited our esteemed panel of critics. Welcome my colleague Elisabeth Vincentelli from the New York Post.
Hello.
Ben Brantley from the New York Times.
Hello.
And Peter Marks from the Washington Post.
Nice
who
to
covered
see you.
You never miss anything in New York, right?
No, I see everything.
No, he's seen more than I have.
You've all seen more than I have. All right, so I want to deal with a couple of the really good plays I thought this season. And one that I was particularly impressed with, Ben, was The Father with Frank Langella. If you could tell us a little bit about that in New York.
Yeah, now, Peter and I are going to disagree on this. I liked it. I was sort of stunned by it. I mean, in a way, it's a gimmick. It's a particular gimmick. But it's such an obvious gimmick. You think, why hasn't this been done before?
And the gimmick being it's a man with Alzheimer's.
It's a man with Alzheimer's seeing a world that seems constantly in flux through his perspective.
Right.
So when, the daughter comes on the second time, it's not the same woman. He's thinking, wait a minute, you can't put the face to the name anymore.
Right, and you don't know where you are. He doesn't know sure what
and you
movie's
realize that sort of the perspective of dementia is that of an absurdist play.
Yeah.
It's that kind of where the social glue that keeps our lives together becomes meaningless. And he's very touching in it, I think.
Frank, yeah. But you were not moved by this?
Not at all. I found it hokey, and I thought that it was one of those plays where 20 minutes in, you went, "Oh, is this all we're going to get? We're just going to get this trick that we're not going to know. He doesn't know where he is."
Although I thought there was such a variation.
Well, let me finish my point. That it was just going to be this kind of repetitious. That's where it came at for me after 20 minutes. And so I sort of just checked out.
If you hadn't checked out, you might have seen some variation in the sense of that you saw the malice. What I thought was so interesting about it was you saw the malice and the arrogance within this personality. So you couldn't just feel pity.
Yeah.
Everything that was nasty in this man that presumably had been nasty when he was totally compass mentis
Was even more nasty.
kept coming to the surface.
Now, Elisabeth, it's a French playwright.
Yes. And
What's his name, the French writer?
Florian Zeller.
Right.
Very popular, huge.
Hugely popular in France.
And he's very prolific. He's fairly young and very handsome. So he's...
And what did you think of The Father?
I agree that it was a great concept, but I don't think he pulled it off.
You don't think Frank did?
No, I don't think the playwright pulled it off. And my problem with it, I didn't like the adaptation by Christopher Hampton, which I thought was very awkward. Like, I don't think they should have kept it in Paris. So the locale doesn't matter, and I thought it was very distracting.
Right, I agree with that.
It
That's a
didn't
good
feel
point.
French.
It could be anywhere.
Yeah. Whereas
But
God of Carnage, they had no problem taking to Brooklyn.
Exactly. It worked very well.
Well, what do we think about Frank, though? I mean, Frank? I love Frank. He's a wonderful actor, but sometimes he's doing Frank Langella, big star. I thought in this one I saw him play the character, not the Boulevard star.
Lovely.
Right.
He's lovely.
Another performance that I really liked this year was Jeff Daniels in Blackbird, which was, I thought, a rather harrowing play.
I couldn't get you out. And I gave in. I gave into it. Everything. Every day.
Well, I've seen him do it before with, I thought, a better acting partner. He did it originally with Alison Pill, and I thought I was blown away by that coupling, that pairing. I thought they didn't work that well together.
Michelle Williams.
Yeah, Michelle Williams and Daniels didn't have that same kind of explosive relationship. And I didn't believe the backstory as much with Michelle Williams.
Yeah, I agree entirely. With Alison Pill, there were moments where I saw them go back in time to what they were. And I think it's essential you believe that.
Well, we should say that Jeff Daniels plays a man who had an affair with a woman when she was underage. And she comes back and confronts
She was 12.
Well, he raped her, essentially.
Yeah, it was rape. And if you mention seduction in your review, you will get so many letters from emails saying, I don't care if it was consensual, it's rape.
Right.
It's a very fraught subject. I think it's a really good play, a very intense play, and a very upsetting play. she was so palpably neurotic from the beginning. There was really nowhere for her to go. So it was all a little too frenzied for me.
Although I thought, though, in a sense, Elisabeth, that the fact that she seemed really crazed from the beginning immediately put you on Jeff Daniels' side, which is a bit of the trick of the play.
true.
I agree. I think it would have been very odd that if she had been more composed. But that said, I do like the idea that we're seeing a woman who's completely messed up.
But it's hard to believe. It's hard to believe someone in that state would go to that length to see the person who's so traumatized.
I think it's very
her.
believable, actually.
See, I didn't buy that. I think
I
you have to
bought
come
it.
in with some. You know, you have to believe that at the beginning that she's brought herself. She's brought herself together to be able to confront him, but that she over time
apart,
falls apart. It just it's too much of it.
And also for purposes of the play, I mean, I think it's a valid point you make, but for purposes of the play, it helps if you don't start off at one level and sustain that level all the way through.
No, I agree, but I also agree actually with Michael in a rare case
Thank you, Elisabeth.
that it does make him more sympathetic.
Yeah.
And
No,
that's
I think
very
that's a good point,
perverse.
yeah. Yeah,
And
it really
audiences
is,
are
yeah.
not used to
That is a
perversity
good
on
point.
stage.
Right.
Yeah. Wow, I should have been a critic. Now, I want to put in a good word here for a director who I think is really maybe the best director we have now of performances of actors, Joe Mantello, because he got these performances in Blackbird, but he also did this play that I love, The Humans, where every single cast member in that play is remarkable. Reed Birney and Jane Howdyshell, and don't remember the others, but you like this play, you like these people.
Oh, very much. Yeah, no, it's exquisite. And what I especially love about this production is that in some ways it's a very conventional domestic drama, but with that sense that we all have, I think, when we go home, there's something very unsettling, almost supernatural going on in the corners of our minds because of the power we have. Long Day's Journey into Night is another example of
Yes.
that,
Right.
to wound each other. And to translate that subliminally into supernatural terms, I thought was kind of genius.
Yeah, it's a haunting play.
Yeah.
It is a hunting play, and it's interesting. I think if you see a lot of this kind of drama, family drama, you really appreciate what's happening, the dynamics so beautifully worked out between each of these characters. You know, whenever anybody is in any part of that wonderful New York set, it really makes sense why they're there. You know, you understand you can almost follow this play through each of the characters separately, their movements through the story, you know, and that's so unusual. That's sort of like Long Day's Journey into Night in a way, except they're never all together that much in Long Day's Journey.
It's like an August Wilson intrusion of supernatural there at the end.
Yes,
But
that's
also
true, yeah.
You're skeptical, Elisabeth.
I felt the supernatural element was a little tacked on. I didn't buy it.
And they
I
tamped it
felt-
down. It was much more apparently
They
pronounced.
did, but to
They
me
tamped it
still
down as
doesn't work. Whereas I thought it worked a lot better in an off-Broadway play called John by Annie Baker,
Oh, that was
Wonderful
wonderful.
play.
which was
Superb.
vastly superior in craft
Well, I don't
to
know
the
about that.
Humans. Even though I love the Humans,
But John-
You like
but
it.
John is on another level, and the supernatural element is much better integrated.
Margaret
Broadway.
Prime.
I'm curious, though, as
It's a great year.
critics, when you're writing about a play and you're thinking about the work of Joe Mantello, how do you assess it? Because you almost don't see the hand there. I mean, we know the performances are really good, but I think Joe's got to be a bit like Elia Kazan was with his actors of that day, getting these kind of performances. What are you looking for when you write about direction?
Well, I think you don't want. I mean, Eva von Hove is a case apart.
The European guy
right,
who does
right,
the
right,
Crucible.
where it's very high concept. When you're talking about something like The Humans or what Mantello does well, it's that he gets everyone on the same page. The most important thing, I think, when you see a play like that is that you believe all these actors inhabit the same universe, which I didn't feel, for example, in this revival of Long Day's Journey into Night. I didn't feel they all came from the same family, which is kind of essential.
Problem, yeah.
And Mantello really does however he does it, he gives them that space where they're all breathing the same oxygen.
And I'm not sure he does that in musicals. He's taken on some big ones like Wicked, where I don't think that his deft hand is as apparent. I think it's also just you feel a grasp of psychological understanding. He understands the psychology of the world he's creating.
Elisabeth, on Evo, the different kind of director, Ivo von Hove.
Very different.
Very different, yes. I mean, he's European, and there is this European style where the play becomes secondary to the concept of the
Well,
direction.
it's not secondary at all. It's just a different way to approach it. The play is not secondary at all in the Crucible
Crucible,
or View from the Bridge,
which he directed.
It's very much there. It's just a different way to approach it. And I think in the case of someone like Ivo van Hove dealing with Arthur Miller, especially with the Crucible, what's important is that doesn't have the baggage of having grown up with it and having enjoyed it in high school.
I think that's right.
That's really smart.
It comes at it from a, like, I had never seen the Crucible. I didn't grow up with it.
Right.
You know, so.
Right, McCarthyism isn't really a European issue, so he doesn't have to
No.
deal with it. But I think the difference with Van Hove is he starts from a design perspective very often, and actually that informs his view of how of the people in the play. It actually works for him. And what he brings to Miller, what's so interesting to me, is that these plays that have virtually no visual language, his plays, or they don't feel rich naturally. He creates that. You know, he finds that I think, very much in concert with his designer who he's worked with for years.
His partner,
Jan
Jan.
Jan.
Partner, Jan Weisveld. As Elisabeth was saying, you know, to bring back The Crucible, which is a fabulous production in my estimation,
lovely,
we all seem to agree. You know, the idea of like bringing back to the idea of the supernatural in that play, and trying to understand, you know, what people in the 17th century might have thought about supernaturalism, and transpose that to what we think today. And it's certainly so relevant given what's going on in this country with, you know, the belief systems like run amok on social media through this, you know, crazy
Well, it is
campaign.
just.
And to shift briefly to A View from the Bridge, which I hope doesn't get forgotten since it's no longer with us. I mean, that...
For Tony's? You mean
Yeah.
Tony?
He brought, I mean, that is essentially a Greek tragedy. And Arthur Miller wrote it as a Greek tragedy, but in every naturalistic production, when you have, you know, the lawyer sort of pontificating, saying, I'm telling you the story of a man and I can't unsee it, it never quite fits together. And to put it into what is essentially a classical Greek amphitheater environment in modern terms, it just makes it so raw. And it seems like it's happening forever, sort of in eternity. That to me I was shaking at the
Now, let me ask you, though, where do you go, Elizabeth? You're a Tony voter, right?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, so do you vote? Evo's nominated and Joe Mantello's nominated. We have two different styles of directing. Who do you go for?
I'm going to go for Van Hove. I'm not sure which one, but I think having someone like Ivo Van Hove on Broadway is just as seismic as having Hamilton.
Right.
I'm really serious, because it's opening people's eyes to a different style of directing on Broadway that we'd never see on
I
Broadway.
think that's very true.
Yeah.
And people will say, oh, Hamilton is revolutionary. Actually, no, it's not. Only in one way. The show itself is not revolutionary, neither in structure nor form. What's revolutionary about it, it's its impact. And having someone like Ivo Van Hove on Broadway is just as revolutionary, because people now will be like, it doesn't have to be naturalistic. I can have just like this empty set and a shower of blood. That's okay.
Yeah,
it happens. So in a way,
Yes.
you're getting people used and audiences to a new grammar, a new vocabulary, a new system of thinking about a play that's opening up to, like, it's opening up so many options.
A View from the Bridge.
I'm maybe optimistic there, but
A View from the
You know?
Bridge is going to is showing you how theaters can be directed in this country in
it can
10
be.
years.
And as much as I really like what Joe Mantello is doing, and I also agree that it's much better with plays than with musicals. So The Humans is really lovely, but it's a completely different style, you know.
Yes.
And when I was watching Long Day's Journey, I was like, why couldn't Evo direct that one too? Because can you think? I mean, there was
agree.
such a static, boring staging.
And this is the
You can't
the
do that
Nothing was going
anymore.
on.
You can't
It's
do those
done.
anymore.
It's done. The Daniel Sullivans and all those guys, they're cooked.
Well, I don't know about that. I don't know about that.
But no, but
I mean, there's
really,
room for naturalism.
I don't think they're cooked.
I think
I don't think
people's
they're-
patience is going to be tested with those static revivals.
No, I think,
Feels like-
but Dan Sullivan, to be fair, did his Merchant of Venice was not
was the
not,
best I've seen.
It had elements of novelty about, not
Yes,
just novelty,
wacky,
but innovation.
yeah.
Oh, I can't wait for Ivo Van Hove's The Odd Couple. When he tackles
Really do it.
the Neil Simon.
Oh, I'd actually like
Yeah,
it.
I'm sure you would. All right, let's move along to the musicals.
But it is interesting, Michael, that you started with plays. This is a very good. This says something about the season that you actually, in spite of the Juggernaut show that we
Hamilton, this.
Right. It's
I'm sorry,
nice that we've talked
what
this
are
long
you
about
talking
plays.
What's Hamilton?
No, but I thought there were some really terrific plays and very good performances this year in the plays that are somewhat overshadowed because you can't pick
Break
up a
through.
newspaper and
Right.
break through Hamilton.
Right.
It's Hamilton all the time.
Right.
Yeah, or Beyonce.
$5.
$5. You owe us $5 if you said Beyonce. All right, so there's no rival to Hamilton, but Shuffle Along is an interesting musical, Elizabeth. Is it a successful musical that George C. Wolfe has done, rethinking this old review from the 20s?
I'm actually going to use a word that our former colleague Scott Brown used to describe Spider-Man. Nia called it a masterpiece.
A masterpiece?
Yeah, something that was a mess, but you can't stop thinking
masterpiece.
A masterpiece.
masterpiece.
MESS, masterpiece. And I almost think about Shuffle Along that way. I really enjoyed it. I liked it a lot. It's got problems, but it's one of those shows that despite its problems really sticks with you. I still like think about some of those numbers.
Yeah.
And the way the choreography and was
again, Glover.
integrated, the way they weaved in and out of the numbers, I thought was masterful. Yeah, it's a little history lesson-y, but at the same time, why not? I mean, it's a great story. It could be like retooled a little bit. And I'm never fond of anything, either movie or play that ends with a whatever happened to thing. It's just a thing that trick I don't really like.
But I thought there were a lot of Scotch tape moments like that. It's like, oh, how are you going to solve this? How are you
Right.
going to do this transition? Let's throw this in.
It was a little awkward.
The tragedy of Shuffle Along, I think, is that it's not finished and it will never be done again. It's absolutely an experience you want to have, but it's not a complete thought. It tries to be. It stitches it over, as we're talking about, with these narrative, old hackneyed narrative ideas of and this kind of almost like, where are they now construct.
Well, and the first half is like 42nd Street. It's got that level
but what
of dialogue.
What Savion's doing with telling a story through tap, that's the
exciting.
That's thrilling.
That's wonderful.
That's thrilling,
It's
and
incredible.
it only breaks through. It's almost like he and George Wolfe, the director, were
Are
struggling
tangling
with
each
each other
And-
over who's going to tell this story.
The other thing, and I think I've never been really on board with Audra McDonald because I admired her more than I loved her.
Yeah, I can
but in this one, she exudes this joy
Yes.
of performing.
Yeah.
She looks so happy to be there. Like
Right.
you don't really see that often.
And she has a sense of humor.
But
she could do comedy.
Well, that's it.
She
She's
could
not having.
tap. Yeah,
She's playing a character. I think she doesn't have to feel like the great lady of the stage.
Right.
She's playing the great lady of the
She's
stage.
making fun of
Yeah,
herself.
exactly, yeah.
She's making fun of
And
her
she
own
didn't get
image.
nominated.
And why
It's the
wasn't
one
she
performance
nominated?
didn't
I mean,
get nominated for.
it's
It's hilarious.
Yeah, exactly.
Crazy.
Sorry.
No, it's quite all right. So we just have to deal quickly here with a small show. Some people like it. I feel it's a bit cynical because it's aimed for the majority of ticket buyers who are women. Waitress, and they had the big all done by.
because that's done so often.
Nobody else had their big selling points all
Why is that
created by
cynical?
women. There was something cynical about this whole package.
How is that cynical? It never happens. What are you talking
I don't know.
about?
I just thought
That's
they pushed
crazy.
it's all by women, for women, about women, by women.
Wait,
It's not-
how is that cynical? We had to endure like a show about like basketball and an NFL coach. That's not cynical.
Maybe it's because the Weislers are behind it. I get that.
It's 2/3 of the Broadway ticket buyers are
right.
women.
That's
They are,
right.
yeah, they are. And is Waitress based on that cute little movie where she bakes pies and finds herself? Is it any good? Or is
Well, it's also based on, as far as I can tell, from Alice, the sitcom. It's it's exactly the same
Early to
setup.
bed,
You've got
early to
the woman sort of looking for her identity in a new life, and then you've got the big sassy waitress and the wacko other waitress.
Totally.
And
It's
it's so formulaic. There's a lot I love in the score. I think
Sarah
Sarah Bareilles
Bareilles,
is lovely, and Jesse Mueller has a voice like nobody else on stage. And I thought it was so exciting to actually hear, the spirit of Joni Mitchell in a Broadway musical. I mean, when has that ever happened before? And to work so effortlessly as far as the musical numbers do. The rest of it, I thought the jokes were so lame, some of it, and it really is. You can just anticipate every zinger. But
And why can't we have a musical that does obviously that does appeal to women? But why do you have to make the husband in the story? If you haven't, the story, he's
he's
like
a wife beater though, right? He's a bad
he's
guy.
not. He is every cliche about an abusive husband you could possibly imagine, to the point where why she has not left the stage and gotten on a bus to Chicago during the show is just unbelievable.
But it's the process that she's reinventing herself.
I get it,
And
but
they put a backstory that was not in the movie of her mother having been abused.
Right.
And then we were supposed to see the process of the Jesse Mueller character getting that together.
And you did also
for better or for worse. Yeah.
And Nick Cordero was given more of a character than just the loud. I think you did
was?
understand. Yes, I did. You
I
did
didn't get
understand
anything
why.
raising his arm and
No,
poor me and
as you said earlier.
don't love the
excuse me,
baby.
excuse me,
Don't love the
Peter,
baby
Peter,
is his big line.
Excuse me, as you said earlier, I'm trying to make a point.
Well, make an important one.
You understood why why she would feel guilty about leaving him, and how he manipulated her emotionally, which you don't always get in the abusive husband portrait. Yes, he's a jerk, but I didn't think he was quite as black and white as.
Elisabeth, what did you?
I think the show is actually a big improvement on the movie. And the husband is a lot worse in the movie. In the movie, the huge problem in the movie is that you do not understand why she hasn't left already. And that
You
is
understand
something
here why she hasn't left?
Well, yes, I think it's actually, well, first of all, it's hard to believe, but he's been toned down in the show. He's a lot worse in the movie.
Yeah, I saw it a while ago. I don't remember.
And in the show, I think there's something a little, he's a little bit of a idiot galoot. And the fact is, a lot of women have a really hard time living a relationship with an abuser. And that is a very common, I'm not saying it's great, obviously.
Right.
It's a hard thing to do. It's a hard thing to do to live. And I think the show made a pretty astute
I agree.
point about that.
I thought that actually, I thought there was
that
more
was well,
texture
and
than
I'm a big fan of the show. I really love the show. I think it's got almost at times. I thought the staging is incredibly clever, and you almost don't notice how clever it is. The way that's Diane Paulus. I think her strength, what she's great at, is she's very good at creating crowd scenes where there's a lot of people on stage and everybody's doing something, without it looking super busy or crazy,
Like that fake talk that people do in the background.
No,
you
she's
see actually
very
like,
good at creating a sense of people on stage, the way you're in life, like people talk to each other or, or they're busy in the background. Like the diner scenes, I mean, there's a lot of them, obviously. There's always like the band is on stage and when they're not playing, they sit in the booth in the back. It creates a sense of community. The movie is very good at creating a sense of community. And you can see where these people like each other and stay with each other. And I like this kind of weird, Mayberry, almost magical realist take on it. It's completely not, realistic. But
the formula, as Ben said, and I agree, it's they're musical theater cliches. I mean, she doesn't really make these characters, for me, anything more than fit a formula. And I think that's sort of what I do feel that Diane, of late, her musicals have all had this problem. It's part of the reason why, and she hasn't really done anything magical since Hair, really.
well, we
not
got
even Pippin? Pippin was great.
I didn't like Pippin.
We got to wrap it up. We have to wrap it up. But on the whole, we were pretty enthusiastic about a lot of these things that we've seen. So I want to hear, since you're critics, I do want to hear, Elisabeth, the one show you went to where you thought, God, I wish I could reclaim those hours of my life. I had to sit through this one this season. Which was that for you?
God. Just because it's still kind of fresh, I would say Tuck Everlasting.
Yeah.
Just because it's a fresh one and I was pretty bored. I was really annoyed too because I think there's a problem in that Americans have lost a way with family fare, which doesn't have to be a bad thing. The Brits are much better at it. They always manage to get a little bit of, spice in that sugar. Like Matilda is a great example of that. But it doesn't have to be so cloying.
Yeah, Tuck Everlasting does sound like there's
Just
a lot of
so
molasses
flowing,
on that
and it doesn't
stage.
have to be that way. The book is actually pretty dark. They can't deal with that. It's just horrifying.
Ben, any hours you'd like to reclaim?
No. I mean, I don't want to sound Pollyannish, but actually, even if it's really bad, I'm so fascinated by it. And
Which one fascinated you the most this year?
in that sense? Well, I mean, trying to figure out quite why American Psycho didn't take off always interested me. Because I'd seen it in London, and I thought it would only improve after that, and in fact, it hadn't. And watching, for example, Bright Star, I think if that were in a small theater, done as a piece of story theater, I think it would have worked so much better than on a big Broadway stage.
And for you, Peter?
I guess I would. My default would be American Psycho. I just didn't.
Which I quite liked.
Which I didn't like at all. I don't think horror of that kind works in musicals unless it
Which is why the show is not horror.
If it was mock horror, I don't know what it is.
It was
I don't know what
comic.
that show is.
I think
All
it's
of it.
satire. I think it's satire, but it strikes the note so early, and again, there's really no variation on it.
You have this huge, gore explosion in the middle, and how do you keep on after that? You peak early, and then you have nowhere to go.
All those cliches about New York in the '80s. I mean, it just doesn't play well.
I did think Benjamin Walker,
old.
I mean, even though he's not sexy, which is sort of a problem, does create No, and he has been. He wasn't bloody Andrew Jackson, but it was such a disciplined performance. I mean, every physical gesture in that show was so thought out.
I like that. I thought it was part of the character.
Yeah.
I thought it worked for the character that it was so thought out and
I agree.
I agree
said
with
that.
Elizabeth.
I
Very
liked
interesting.
it.
The women on the panel like American Psycho.
I was
Who kills all the
surprised.
women?
The great misogynistic musical.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Well,
Very
but
funny.
see, but it's I don't agree that it's misogynistic.
I
actually.
think that's true. Yeah,
I think
so too.
it shows you the man why it's important that he kills women. You can see why this proto bro hates women.
All right. Thank you very much, Elisabeth Vincentelli from the New York Post, Ben Brantley from the New York Times, and Peter Marks from the Washington Post. And I will see you down in Washington. You're going to interview me on May 18th at the
Because
Arts
you
Club.
have won the distinguished.
Marfield Prize. Thank you very much. For
The
Razzle,
Marfield Prize? My God.
for Razzle Dazzle, Battle for Broadway.
All
Alfred
right,
Simon.
enough.
Available in bookstores now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Used to be
Our thanks to the Friends of Theater Talk for their significant contribution to this production. Theater Talk is made possible in part by the Frederick Lowe Foundation, the Corey and Bob Dinelli Charitable Fund, the Noel Coward Foundation, Carrie J. Fries, the Dorothy Strelson Foundation, and the New York City Department of Cultural Affairs.
We welcome your questions or comments for Theater Talk. Thank you,